Hi, I am Rhea Amorlara, a second-year BSSW student from Set B. So I am tasked to discuss our case study report, and now let me present to you the Anna's case study report. So for the relationship building, Anna, together with her two children and her grandmother who have been traumatized by what had happened during the Typhoon Odette, up to the present needed to undergo counseling for their trauma. As counselors, we made sure that the location for our session was friendly and healthy for the clients. Before anything else, we explained the importance of confidentiality and counseling, that whatever they say is safe and will never be disclosed, and that we are responsible for assisting them in overcoming everything that causes them trauma. So in order to make our client and her family comfortable with us, we introduce ourselves first and share them some information about their issue, so they are comfortable enough to share with us their experiences during that time. With that, we can gain information about their condition, their struggles, and the hardships they face in handling their own battles. So for our counseling session, we only conducted once a week for an hour and a half, and we made sure to mention their rules as a client and our rules as a counselor to ensure good communication and to build a rapport. We use an elective type of counseling process in which Anna is free to offer solutions to assist them cope with their trauma, and we will also share our thoughts on how they might heal and improve. Now, for the assessment part, here is the background information of the client. So, our client named Anna May Santos. Her nickname is Anna. She was a female, 21 years old. She was born on January 10, 2001 at Tagbilaran City, Bohol. Her highest educational attainment was an elementary graduate, and her physical condition was physically fit. She has no any disabilities, and her present address was at Poroca Mansiles, Barangay Panagtaran, San Fernando, Cebu Province. Her religion was Roman Catholic, and she is now experiencing a post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. Now, for the family composition, our client have two daughters were named Angeline Santos, a 6 years old preschool student, and Joy Santos, 5 years old preschool student. And her grandmother was named Esmeralda Santos, who was 70 years old. And for her educational attainment, she was an elementary undergraduate, and they have no occupations. For the presenting problem, Anna, her two children, and her grandmother were victims of Typhoon Odette in Cebu City, which left them traumatized by what had happened, especially since her husband had died during that time. They became homeless after the tragedy happens, living on the street with no access of electricity or running water, as well as they experience hunger. So here is the client's background. Anna is a 21-year-old single mother with two children. Their family was traumatized of what had happened during the Typhoon Odette. They experienced hunger, fear, and depression, especially that Anna's husband died when he risked his own life to save his daughter, who was trapped inside their house. It was a traumatic experience, as Anna and her family witnessed how the three fell into his husband, and their house was destroyed as the typhoon brings torrential rains, violent winds, floods, and storm surges from their province, which is the Cebu City. Many families were affected, and one of them are Anna's family. It is hard for them to recover as they don't have enough money to rebuild their own house. So Anna and her family were illegally living at the sidewalk on the street of Cebu. So Anna, with her two daughters and her grandmother, are currently living at the street without electricity and water connection. Her daughter sells sampaguita every afternoon at the church, while her grandmother is a balot vendor. Anna works as a dishwasher at a small eatery and earned 150 pesos a day. Their house are made of used tarpaulins and plastics. The client's situation was so difficult because they were temporarily living on the street with insufficient food to eat, clean water to drink, and no proper hygiene for her two daughters and grandmother. It is difficult for them because at any time they can be expelled from their place. Because of their situation, her grandmother stopped selling a balot because the money that accumulated before was used for their daily needs, for the reason that they were picking up recyclable materials to sell at the junk shop just to survive. So sometimes they can eat leftover food that Anna brings from her work as a dishwasher. Their situation is complicated by the fact that her two daughters need to stop schooling because she is also maintaining a medicine for her grandmother who was who has a severe cancer. The client said that it is hard to live at the streets, especially when the trucks of the government passed by to get their things and not returning it back to them. Anna dreams to have their own house so they will never live or sleep in the street, but her salary is not also sufficient for their daily needs. Also, Anna said that she can't afford to buy medicine for her grandmother as it is very expensive, and they can't afford it to buy deworming medicines for her children, as her two children have big tummies because both of them have tapeworms. So until now, there are still burden at the death of Anna's husband. Their children are also looking for their father, and Anna can't do anything as she is still traumatized of what happened when their province hit by the typhoon. So for the diagnostic assessment, so Anna's community has the resources she needs to solve her problem. And based on the information we have gathered, we can conclude that Anna's situation is difficult. We can refer Anna to the government-sponsored housing projects for the poor, as stated in the report, because they lost their home due to the typhoon. We can also refer Anna to the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program or the 4Ps program, as she is potentially beneficiary due to her situation. We can help Anna acquire new skills like livelihood programs that might help her in terms of gaining income to sustain their needs. Other family members must also be evaluated, especially her children. The children and her grandmother's health is harmed as a result of the poverty they lived in. As a result, we need to get them to one of the community's health centers as soon as possible. Then, we might be able to assist Anna in getting her children free education and government scholarships to help them finish their studies.
So now, I will be talking about the planning or the helping plan. It is the most important step in the process to achieve and define the objectives. So our helping plan is composed of specific objectives, activities, responsible person, and expected outcomes. So for our first objective is to help the client and her family overcome their trauma after what they experienced in Typhoon Odette. Activities are counseling, weekly seminar, and meditation. Responsible persons are the social worker, counselor, psychologist, client's family, and client. Expected outcomes is that the client and her family will overcome the trauma they get and little by little can move on and cope up from the tragedy of Typhoon Odette. Second objectives is to provide client their special needs for daily use and a house that they can call home. Activities are giving those foods, water, and shelter, and also nutrition assistance for her grandmother. Responsible persons are the social worker, the SWD personnel, and the government personnel. Expected outcomes is the client will not worry for their daily needs and the medicines for her grandmother because of the program that they availed from the government and the SWD. And for the third objectives is to help the client's daughter to be able to study again. Activities is refer them to the SWD to avail their program like 4Ps. Responsible persons are the social worker, the SWD personnel, and the client. Expected outcomes is the future of the client's daughter is secure because they can study again without worrying for the expenses. And the fourth objectives is to help the client find a job that can help them to survive without a man or husband that can support them. Activities is the job fair for the victims of the Typhoon Odette. Responsible persons are the social worker, the SWD personnel, and the government personnel. Expected outcomes is that the client will have a job and can start over again by the help of the social worker, the SWD, and the government. So moving on is the intervention. It aims at restoring, maintaining, or enhancing the social functioning. So the intervention included in the client option and staff studying reflect many implicit ideas about the nature of family homelessness when a tragedy occurs in order to promote effective resolution of the case and enough attention to the client. The client is a 21 years old single mother living on the street with her two children and grandmother with no access to electricity or running water as well as hunger and the ways most suited to solve the issue. Proponents have varying expectations regarding the therapy's impact. A worker may be able to inform or update the client on the status of the procedures for the caseworker to show the client actions to assist prevent homelessness, which are most cost-efficient than treating issue after someone has become homeless. A worker assists the client in moving as quickly as possible from an emergency or transitional shelter or of the street into stable housing. It also connects people with supportive, community-based resources that assist them in maintaining their housing. The client issue worker must conduct counseling for the client who experienced tragedy to stabilize household by providing food support such as foodstuffs and program for free school for her two children, as well as the assistance for her grandmother for breakfast and lunch. The case management focuses on determining the client's needs for housing assistance, assisting them finding and obtaining housing, and securing other resources. Now, we will move on to the evaluation. It increases effectiveness and accountability in the ways practitioners treat clients. So, following the catastrophe, the client and her family had good therapy mediation sessions. Anna is attending the weekly seminar and mediation sessions that have been prescribed for her and her family. Her therapist was astounded by Anna's improvement after only a week of mediation when they were going it for a month. The DSWD personnel, in collaboration with the government, have provided aid and support for them recuperation. After the incident, Anna's two children have improved their interactions in online classes. Also, while the government provides Anna with a job to meet their needs, the social worker stated that Anna demonstrates her aptitude and abilities while also allowing her to pursue her passion of doing things to enjoy. She is happier and totally recovered. Now that we are nearly finished with our process, at the moment, Anna is working at the LGU of Bohol, and her mother is caring for her two children. We can report that Anna and her family have fully recovered from the tragedy that has befallen them. And the last part is the follow-up and termination. This will help the agent to get information regarding the client's improvements. So as a result, the client has effectively resolved her problem with the assistance of the social worker in order to obtain the services and programs that were offered to her, in which the client's assistance plans, assessment, and evaluation were all accomplished satisfactorily. The social worker or counselor communicates with the client while following up to assure the stability and well-being of the family. The worker believes in their client's ability to cope with difficulties and progress of their own. So that's all for the case study report for the Group B. Thank you and good morning.